Welcome to the Restaurant Help Podcast, a new resource for strategy and insights from some of the top minds in the restaurant business, all designed to help your business prepare for the future. This episode is brought to you by Tyson Food Service.
Welcome to the Restaurant Help Podcast. If you're a first-time listener, make sure to subscribe for more great episodes wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Wyan, and today's discussion is all about delivery breakthrough. Joining me today is Chef Thomas Talbert and Chef Matthew Luaders, both from CSSI Marketing and Culinary. Welcome to the show. First, can you each give our audience a brief overview of your restaurant business experience and your background and kind of how you've led up to this point?
Absolutely. This is Thomas. Have worked in a variety of restaurants and food service establishments over the last 20 years plus. So fine dining restaurants, QSR, also on the healthcare side. So in addition to having a culinary background, I'm also a registered dietitian, and currently at CSSI, where I've been for about the last 14 years, have had the opportunity to work with many of the top restaurant chains in the United States, both here in the U.S. and at a global level, as well as many smaller operators across the United States.
Wow, that's wonderful. Matthew, what about you? Can you give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, I've been in food service. It seems like my entire adult life. Coming out of high school, it's really the industry that I'm passionate about. I've done everything from manage a bed and breakfast in Vermont to managing a hotel in Wisconsin, and everything in between. Fine dining into B&I here in Chicago. I've been with CSSI for about 8 years as the culinary director, working and collaborating with manufacturers and restaurant chains, both big and small, on all sorts of projects to drive sales and respond to consumer need. Excited to be here today.
We're happy to have you, and you both have a wealth of knowledge in the food service industry, a lot of different experience. So we're very excited to get into today's episode, which is all about delivery. And of course, with the enormous growth around delivery during this crisis that we are going through, delivery has kind of seen both good and bad, from third party to the next generation of self-delivery. So we're going to kind of cover all facets of delivery today. So let's get right into it. So off-premise and delivery was ramping up anyway, pre-COVID. And it was going to be a huge part of 2020, as that was a prediction in the food service industry. So how do you guys think that the consumer demand has changed since the onset of this pandemic?
Well, leading up to COVID, we're increasingly an on-demand society. And we were seeing that with third-party delivery. It seemed that restaurant chains and self-operators were starting to gear their menus towards delivery and making sure that they had a product that was able to withstand the packaging process, delivery process, and deliver a product that's great. All of a sudden, it seemed like overnight, this is something that they had to do. So restaurants that were already in a good position to do this, and they had a product that was able to be delivered, were in a better space to weather the storm. But you saw this shift where everybody was scrambling to take a look at their menu, decide which items we're able to deliver and we're able to reheat nicely. And those that weren't are, now in the phase of figuring it out. And that's really what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, it truly became a dire need for restaurants to, jump on board with off-premise. And, those operators that didn't have that integrated into their business model already, and now with the industry being hit so hard and the need for additional revenue streams to really survive, what do you think the biggest challenges are for those operators who didn't even think about delivery and hadn't even integrated it into their previous business model?
And that's right. That's what many operators, are faced with that challenge right now. And a lot of it's, some of the basics that you need to be thinking about when getting into delivery, and now having to do that very quickly, such as, do we offer our full menu? What products actually deliver well? And you think about, if it doesn't necessarily deliver well fully composed, how do we still deliver that food item, but maybe we need to deconstruct it or have some of the components not put together in the same box, such as French fries and the produce that's going to go with a hamburger. And then the packaging. If you're quickly trying to, get your operation ready for delivery, do you have the right packaging? Is it packaging that you have access to or you have at house? What you want a representation of your brand to be in that customer experience, with the added need for safety and sanitation. Do you have the items that are going to give that customer the confidence that the product was really last touched by the person who made it or packaged it at the restaurant? And then also being able to let people know that you actually are open. We have delivery, and whether that's through social media or if you're using one of the delivery services, and then being able to do that all simultaneously in a very fast manner is a challenge. But we've seen operators successfully rise to the occasion, and really, I think it's taking a look at who on your team can help with that approach and do some of that testing rapidly, help to make sure you're getting out the messaging, and think about doing that in a safe and sanitized way for customers.
Absolutely. It's not a matter of just cooking food and serving a hot plate to a table. We have to think about, travel capacity and menu offerings and what is going to be good for the off-premise and delivery model. Not everything on the menu is good for these situations. So there's a lot to think about, a lot going into this. And, it's been kind of an uncertain time, but I think that eventually we'll get to a more frictionless way of offering delivery. It's just, being able to integrate it into your model as a restaurant that hadn't previously done that. That's a challenge in itself. So, as a lot of operators are looking into offering this, they're thinking about using third party, because third party platforms can make this, a lot easier for them to execute this. However, with third party and just with delivery in general, you can lose control over your brand and, of course, the customer experience of enjoying your food. So, I'd love to hear some strategies and some tactics and ways that you can protect your brand using the delivery model.
Yeah, you know, third party right now is kind of in the doghouse if you follow any form of media, right, through some of their pricing structures, and I think they'll get that under control. But even before COVID, there was always the thought of what is happening to my food after essentially it goes into a taxi cab or an Uber, right? What if I ordered sushi and all of a sudden it's driving around for an hour? Um, is the product still good? So I think that the packaging and the tamper safe or tamper proof things that are in place are definitely going to help with consumers at least being skeptical about product. But for the operator themselves, it's a big challenge to make sure that you're delivering on the experience that used to happen in your dining room once the product arrives at someone's home 20 minutes later. So I'm starting to hear about a lot of initiatives to not even use third-party delivery, but bringing it back in to ordering in-house. So ordering directly on a website or calling a restaurant directly, giving them the opportunity to perhaps employ a server or a line cook or a hostess or somebody who no longer has a position there to deliver that entire experience. So maybe somebody who knows how to handle the food and how to greet you, but also I think it's paying attention to what you already do that is great. So if you're focusing on core items or you have a signature item or something that you do well, whether it's a signature dessert or a cookie or something, and putting that into the packaging, involving it in the dining experience, or if you're doing if it's beverages, if you have a great cocktail service or you're a brewery, maybe it's sending along some of your mugs that have your logo on it to deliver on that in-home experience, that dining room experience once you're at home.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of using promotional branded items to really just remind the customer where the food came from, kind of brings the whole restaurant experience home. Um, kind of aside from some of that and packaging, how does an operator make their food stand out with delivery so it doesn't just get lost in translation as it's just a typical offering, it's just a burger? How do they make it stand out?
Absolutely, and that's key for a lot of operators, especially when you think about more and more operators getting into delivery model, and it becomes competitive. And I do think packaging plays an absolute key role there. So from that experience of this is aligned with what I thought that brand was, and maybe an experience I would have had in restaurant. But there's also a lot of fun ways that they can make their brand stand out. Um, is that instructions on how to prepare the items in there, but maybe in multiple ways. So you can take these items, and it can be the pasta that's there, or you could take this and you can quickly sear it in a pan, and you can have crispy noodles. So you're allowing the customer to think about the products and maybe be more involved or less involved. Um, I think the idea now of alcohol delivery that we're seeing in quite a few cities, and be able to make it that full meal experience, and whether that's a crafted cocktail or just making margaritas to go with your tacos really easy, um, is to think about what is that full experience. How do I make this as easy yet as enjoyable for my customers as possible?
Absolutely. I think there is a big rise with the whole cocktail kits and making them at home. It just brings another edge and an aspect to the whole experience. So I think those are really great, innovative ways, and I'm excited to see what else operators come up with. So far, we have seen efforts to make kind of those special family meals, date nights, the cook at home experience. So, what are your thoughts on how restaurants can really build on those experiences to just drive the restaurant dining experience home?
Yeah, I almost think that this is low hanging fruit. You know that people want to celebrate, and if they are stuck at home, I mean, every event is a chance to do something. So, is it a family meal? Is it Mother's Day? Is it a graduation? Is it just a simple date night? I think there's a lot that restaurants can do. When you think about some of the larger gatherings, you think about families having picnics or just cooking at home. Uh, there's an element of, sometimes, a mother or a father wanting to have a hand in preparing a meal. It's a great opportunity to send something that they might not normally do, where they're really reheating, right? If it's, a backyard picnic, it's providing all the sides and maybe putting in, the delivery kit some burger patties, right? So, they're thinking that, hey, I can handle flipping some burgers on the grill, but maybe you have like, that chefy technique that you don't normally have the expertise to do, like a smoked potato salad, something to elevate a little bit. I love the date night idea. Um, there's a restaurant here in Chicago that offers a board game at pickup. So if you do order a meal from them, you can select from a list of board games that you actually rent. So you go, you pick up your food, you get Scrabble or whatever, and then when you return the board game, you get a discount on your next meal and subsequently your board game rental. So some cool ways to capitalize on the natural times that we all commune together and dine together.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea with the board game. A lot of even breweries, pubs, things like that, they have like the giant Jenga and the board games. So that's a really creative way to bring that experience home, especially, if you're in quarantine with, six other people, you can successfully do that, So very interesting. I'm kind of curious because the plant forward trend was on the rise before all of this. And we've seen, we've talked to a lot of operators that are doing a lot of these, meal kits at home. So from barbecue to burgers to even like build your own pasta kits. I'm curious to see if operators are going to continue on with some of these plant forward trends or any other food trends that are on the rise and really integrate these into the meal kits once this kind of becomes a seamless operation and it's really just built into the foundation. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. And you think about plant forward. I think plant forward is not going anywhere. I mean, you would have seen, a downtick in what we're seeing, but take a look at what's going on with the stocks of some of these plant forward companies. Who we're working with operators right now, they have not slowed down and trying to take a look at either expanding or adding plant forward items to the menu. Plant forward is evolving, so it's not necessarily just about having a meat analog, as much as it is thinking about plants itself and what do I do for more vegetables and how do I decrease animal protein. And then on the meal kit side, that is one that we've all seen rapidly expand here in the last several weeks, last several months with COVID, as it's just an easy decision. If you're purchasing food for your family, you could sit there and order 4 or 5 or 6 entrees, depending on how many people you have in your family, or you can get the meal kit. I think take a look at, for example, Roti, Mediterranean Grill. They just launched a meal kit several weeks ago, and it's an incredible value. You get a lot of food there. When you get that, you can choose: am I making a pita? Am I making a rice bowl? Am I treating all the little items that I'm just going to make this little meze platter? And then all the way on the opposite side, you see Masa out of New York with an $800 delivered sushi kit, and selling out of that. So across the spectrum, this idea that consumers want value, but they're also willing to pay for premium when it comes to meal kits delivered, um, shows that there's a desire for it now. And post COVID, which we all hope is sooner than later, I think we started to build this idea that I can just go ahead and order that, and it's easy. And I can satisfy everybody and quickly have a full meal on the table that will hopefully appeal to everybody in the family or the gathering.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if we're going to shift back towards dining out or if operators are going to continue offering these meal kits after, we get on the other side of this pandemic.
Mm. I think they're still going to offer them. I mean, especially for the operators who are just taking their existing offerings, packaging in a different way. So, opposed to putting in one burger, you're putting in 6 burgers. Opposed to putting in 7 ounces of hummus, you're putting in 17 ounces of hummus. Um, it's not changing your operations, potentially changing your packaging if you don't already have that for catering or larger sizes. But it's, especially when you think about third party delivery, or if you're doing delivery yourself and have a digital app set up, it's just an option on there for the consumer to click. And again, you're not changing operations. You're not having to change your restaurant footprint in any way to be able to deliver that to your customers.
Absolutely. And I think that there's now an ability to have a story behind the ingredients when it comes to these meal kits. So, how does a restaurant maintain control over that entire process when consumers are ordering these meal kits and maybe it's not just one serving, but it's a serving for a couple days? How can they really hone in and have that control?
That's a big one, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden we have, you would go to a restaurant that your relationship there was being in the dining room, interacting with a server, and then enjoying this great food, right? And now it goes beyond that. The ingredients are the big part of the show. So it comes down to everything. A piece of wilted lettuce could deter somebody from ordering a burger from your restaurant, potentially ever again, as they start to cycle through social media and order from all the other restaurants who are offering meal kits. So there is some menu re-engineering and testing that needs to happen there. I know we talk about packaging. That's going to be important. It's not the regular old doggy bag that you may have had in the past, right? The foil pan with the plastic lid. You've got to really think about how your food travels, and I think that operators, if they're not already doing it, should be testing everything before they launch a meal kit. So reheating it, putting it in the packaging, letting it sit for 20 minutes, opening it, seeing how it works, looking at the sequence and how they build things, or do they build it in components and the consumer reheats it and adds at home. I think there is a level of menu re-engineering that has to happen with um, every ingredient, because every ingredient tells a story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, building on that, I think the storytelling is super important when you can do it. An example being Aviary in Chicago. Really beautiful high-end cocktails, and you can order. You can order from them. Like recently, I did one a Jamaican jerk margarita, and there comes a letter that talks about how to make these cocktails at home. But then the individual ingredients. It talks about the Jamaican jerk bitters are in there, and is using fresh lime juice and each of the liqueurs and liquors that they've incorporated into there. I really like what I've seen with some of the wineries out there. I know some of the restaurants are adopting this as well as a virtual wine tasting, wine dinner. So you order your food, and at this time, or you can just sign to your computer, you're going to sit there with a sommelier and talk about the wines that you're having. So you're almost creating that restaurant-like connection with the servers and sommeliers or the um, mixologist, but you're doing that in a virtual environment.
Yeah, I think virtual is not going anywhere. That's definitely on a rise. And kind of going back to the focus on meal kits, they're typically lower priced. So do you think that this will sort of lead patrons to feel like they don't need to pay up when it comes to dining out?
uh, I don't think so, because it might be a lower price, but you still have to do the dishes. And if you're sitting there eating it, like, oh man, I wish we got that, the calamari or I got the artichoke dip or that item. When you do a meal kit or you order it, you're not going to be able to make that kind of impulse on the fly craving decision. Um, and when you're in a restaurant, you're being catered to, their hospitality. I'm going to try this new thing. You can be, the storytelling that goes there live at your table, the social experience of it, just the getting out of the house. Yes, it may be lower cost of a meal kit, but you don't get all the other um, delightful attributes of dining in a restaurant.
Right. And it's a different experience. It's time for us to be innovative and we can kind of work around it to create two entirely different experiences, whether you're at home or you're dining in. And, one trend that doesn't seem to be going anywhere is people love to take pictures of their food. So whether they're out at a restaurant or they make dinner at home, they love to post it. It goes on social media. Everybody knows what everyone's eating. So I'm interested in kind of your take on how operators can sort of seek to capitalize on that. Do you see any sort of trends with social media promotions and maybe tagging, something along the lines with integrating the meal kits? How can they kind of make this experience very social and kind of bring everybody together?
I think now is the best time to start capitalizing on that. That was a monster trend that began, whatever, 7, 8 years ago. People taking photos of their food in restaurants. I used to think it was annoying, and then I started doing it um, because food is beautiful, and it's a great way to get the word out. I think about what Alinea just did for their 15th anniversary. A pretty elaborate dining experience delivered via meal kit to your home, 6 courses with all of the components to pretty much plate up something you would get in the restaurant. And one of the items they did was a signature dessert that when you dine in the restaurant, the server and chef actually plated at your table, right? So they're actually, painting the plate with all of these awesome sauces, and it comes together in a very abstract way. And what Alinea did was put it out on their social media, kind of how to do this, and then people could replicate it at home. I'm told the experience took about 45 minutes to an hour to actually put together this 6 course meal with all the components. But once it was done, everybody was taking pictures and posting to Instagram. A cool opportunity to promote. It's free promotion, but it also makes the consumer feel like they're part of the kitchen, right? So they have access to Grant Achatz on Instagram. He's talking about what he's done in the kitchen, and people who haven't necessarily wanted to cough up the money to eat at Alinea can have this experience. So now all of a sudden, they feel like they're part of the team, and hopefully after COVID ends, this will drive them back into the restaurant for the full experience.
Right. I think social media is just such a great way to sort of build community, make people feel like they're part of the team, like you said. But it's crucial with these meal kits and cook at home experiences to sort of, do an Instagram takeover or, like what all these operators are doing, having that engagement. It's really crucial because that is, I think, what is really the topping on the cake here of what really drives the restaurant experience into the home. So now is the best time for this, and there's a lot of creative strategies that operators are implementing. So it's very interesting to see. I think we'll continue to see a lot more engagement and like we mentioned before, those virtual events. So just kind of wanted to hear your last thoughts on how, what are restaurant operators doing to kind of build their business beyond food delivery options? What else are they doing? What else are they implementing? What are we going to see in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think a lot of it is going to be what we're doing now in regards to COVID. We talked about the meal kits and thinking about delivery and maybe reducing your menu right now to only offer those items that deliver exceptionally well. And then also thinking about, based on that, what are new items that you could be adding? So if you take a look at your menu, and right now you've reduced it down because they deliver exceptionally well, but it's not enough. You might be adding new items or are adding new items to your menu in order to offer more to customers. And then also the idea of creating a virtual kitchen within your kitchen. Take a look at what Wow Bao's doing in the sense that anybody with a restaurant or a kitchen now can become a Wow Bao. So if you think about your traditional menu offerings, you don't necessarily need to have it on your printed menu at the restaurant, but you have other items that you could be offering virtually to those who are ordering your food for delivery and expanding your reach to new consumers.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot more of the virtual kitchen concept because that you can take a brand that maybe is only offered in one city as an actual, brick and mortar location, and now you can offer it throughout the entire country. So that really just scales your business and brings awareness, to people who wouldn't normally try it. So I think these are all really great strategies. I think it's going to be interesting to see all the tactics and new innovations that will come out of this on the other side as we continue to recover. So thank you both so much for your time today, for being on the show. Next, I want to thank each of our listeners. Without you, this podcast would not be possible. So when you're out there in the trenches listening in, make sure you drop us a review or a rating because that's how we get feedback from you. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts and spread the word. That's it for today. We'll catch you right here on the next episode of the Restaurant Help Podcast.